Hello and welcome. This is just a short tutorial to show you how to weather your little transformer. I do not recommend using enamel products for these models, however I find them a lot easier. Now before using the AK wash for panel lining, I do recommend shaking it harder than a teenager after he's found his dad's special magazines. As the model is already glossy, all you have to do is touch it with the paintbrush and the enamel will flow into the crevices. Again, the manual does recommend not doing this because the white spirits do react with the material. After a very short period of time of delicately putting the enamels on, I did resort to just slapping it everywhere and just hoping for the best. The main reason for this technique of putting the panel liner in is to accentuate the panel lines. This does actually give the model a little bit more depth and make it a little bit more interesting to look at. Because without it, the model does look flat and boring without it, in my own opinion. I did try using some water-based oil paints. Unfortunately, they don't mix with water the same as white spirits do. It doesn't really flow into the crevices, just makes a pigmenty mess. And looking at warning labels on your little bottles does give you that little sense of danger when making the models. After the enamels have dried for about 10-15 minutes, enamel thinners are used to clean the brush and also to clean the little mistakes on the model, to try and tidy it up a little bit more. When the brush is clean, all you have to do is dip it into the thinners a little bit and wipe off the excess onto a little towel. And then gently wipe away the enamel so you don't want left on your model. This can be very time consuming, so the alternative method is just to dab the cotton bud into a little bit of white spirits and then just go at your model. It's a lot quicker and pretty much gives you the same results. Just remember you'd only want your brush or your cotton bud slightly damp, as if it's too wet it will wipe away all of the enamel. Now could you imagine using a paintbrush for this little piece? I do have a job, so I can't spend all day just cleaning a little sword. I do recommend doing the panel line in stages, just in case the wash dries too much and it becomes impossible to remove. Even without the cleanup, you can clearly see that the details start to pop before even any of the excess is wiped away. Now to double down and use even more paints that aren't recommended, now come the oils. I do recommend putting these paints on cardboard to let the oil soak out, as this will increase the drying time if not. Again, we'll be using low odour solvent to help manipulate the oils. The trick with the oils is only to use a very tiny amount as they are quite strong, so I use a toothpick to gently place little dots onto the models. Now, as we all know, space is quite dirty, and this is why I've chosen more darker colours to go with the model. Once the dots are placed, use the slightly dampened brush to blend in the oils. I'd just like to remind everyone that low odour does not mean no chemicals. I do not recommend breathing in any of those chemicals. The longer you spend brushing your model, the more the oils will be blended together to give a much smoother finish. I did repeat the previous steps just to make the model a little bit more darker, as it wasn't dark enough for me. When it came to the exhaust ports, or what I believe are exhaust ports on this model, I just applied black straight to the brush in the areas that I'd like it. Now for the final blending of all the colours, just to make it even more smoother, I did just get a little bit of toilet paper and liberally brush the product everywhere, making sure to always wipe the oils myself so I didn't throw the model all over the place. Although it does look like I am removing all of the oil paints, the tissue paper I used is still quite clean and it's the same one that I used for the entire model. As you can see, the difference between the piece that I forgot to do and the finished product, which I believe now has the dirty space look about it. Now, because the model just didn't quite look right and I hadn't thrown enough product at it already, I decided to get my little graphite stick out. Now, instead of running it across the model to give it some edge highlighting, I decided to scrape it off to make some little graphite powder. And once well mixed into my little dry brushes, I concentrated on brushing and polishing it into most of the red pieces on the entire model. Now, although it doesn't really come up on camera, it does give the parts that slight metallic sheen to give it that illusion that it is actually made out of metal. Now for my previous video, I found it absolutely impossible to pose the model. I just couldn't be bothered at the end of this one. I also did forget the right hand, but there's that. So thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed.